Well, welcome to episode 1 of the Offstage podcast. My name is Donovan,
And I'm Tyler.
and we just thought that we would bring some of our conversations that we would have outside in the parking lot during late nights and just make a podcast out of it.
Along with some other content that's, it's going to be interesting.
Oh yeah,
You're
it'll
gonna
be
like
it'll definitely be interesting. We don't know what conversation are gonna come up, and so we'd love for you guys to submit any ideas that you think we could talk about, and hopefully you guys enjoy. Well, this is episode 1, so why don't we just take some time and introduce ourselves, introduce a little bit about what we do in the church ministry, how we got started, and a little bit about where we plan to take the podcast and where we plan to go individually. So, Tyler, why don't you go ahead and start?
Well, that's a really nice intro, by the way. You're like, why don't you start? It's a great way to start a podcast.
Oh, yeah, I definitely think so.
Just throwing it out here. He's on, way too little sleep and
Are
is
you
really
kidding me?
tired right now.
I'm on, I got at least 7 hours last night.
Well, he's a zombie either way.
I mean, I did game a little bit today before our winter blast tonight, so that might be part of it. Might be part of it.
Well, I'm Tyler. I work as a tech director, I guess you could call it. Our titles are vague, to say the least. So
Yeah.
I'm a tech director of sorts.
Yeah,
Specifically, I work in the video side of things, and I maintain things.
yeah, and I think anybody who works in the church can say that their titles are vague
At best.
at best. But
So, that's what I do on a daily basis.
yeah, I mean, for me, Donovan, I work in the worship production area. I do a lot of lighting designing as well as audio engineering. But a lot of my focus has been going lately into lighting design. I love it, and currently I'm trying to do a lot of work in the lighting design while also learning in the audio engineering spectrum. And so,
Well, let me sneak in here for a bit. Let me say, he started as a worship guy and is still quite heavily a worship guy.
oh
He
yeah,
currently plays as our lead EG player.
I do,
So-
yeah. So I also serve on the worship team every weekend. I love it. It's a family.
But so he's going to bring a little bit different perspective than the rest of us techies.
Yeah, I'm
As
the
he's,
worship guy slash. I don't know. I'm a worship tech guy, and he's a tech guy.
Quite solidly. So don't ask me anything worshipy. It's not going to work.
It could work. You bring another perspective into the conversation.
Fair enough.
I know I've come to you with a lot of different things.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, but yeah. So Tyler, why don't we just kind of segue into how we got started in the church ministry?
Okay. So I started in a grade school classroom, not much out of one. I think I was in 7th grade when I started serving in the kids' room. Well, it was a small kids' room. It was at one of our campuses. And I was the only one with any computer skills. So that became my job as the computer guy. So I pulled up YouTube videos for them to dance along to. And then I would repair cables with electrical tape and stupid things like that. Eventually, I got moved into the main auditorium of that campus, ran Pro Presenter. Being one of those campuses, shortly after running that, I became a service director. And then very shortly after that, the week of becoming one, I had someone shadowing me. So that all went pretty quickly. It slowed down after that as I started working with our students ministry and headed that up basically. And that's where I met him. So
Yeah.
And then it, spiraled and spiraled and spiraled. I ended up back at that campus as the tech director about a year later, 2 years later, something like that. And Donovan's phone / our
phone
camera
is
is ringing. So Donovan just got a phone call, and
Yes.
that's why there's a slight break there. But as I was saying, I ended up as a tech director at our campus, and then our tech director at the main campus left, so I filled in for him and ended up here. Side note, we're recording on an iPhone, which is why it happened at 4K 60. So it's a great iPhone, but it still gets phone calls.
Yeah, minus when it interrupted like that. I might have to put it on Do Not Disturb next time.
Maybe.
Oh, man.
But I think it's your turn.
Yeah, so for me, I started off as a guitarist. One of my uncles, he used to play guitar in a rock band, and so he was one of the people who got me really started into music. So ever since I was a little kid, I always had a guitar, just kind of around in my life. And then when I hit middle school, I went to a private Christian school. And so I started playing on the middle school worship team because we had chapels every Thursday. And so I thought I was cool. I got a Line 6 Pod HD. Those are the big things in the day. But yeah, out of middle school, going into high school, fast forward to my junior year, I started playing at a church out here in Brookfield. It's called Elmbrook, and so I started in the student ministry, and then kind of segued into the main service as an EG player, and then I got a call from one of my friends who was on staff currently at Fox River, which is where we both are currently, to come and play for a student conference. And after that, at the time, the student's pastor had asked me if I would be interested in heading up the student services. And at the time, I was a 17-year-old kid, like, yeah, absolutely, let's do this. Little did I know that that's what I would be doing 2 years later.
Over 2.
Yeah, right. So, student worship coordinator as a student, which is kind of weird if you think about it. But then I started in the lighting world under, it was, crap, I just messed that up.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Podcast.
The podcast. In the lighting world, yeah, I've been learning lighting. Audio has just been something that's always kind of been there. I don't know. It's really, a lot of you guys will probably understand
Yeah.
what I'm talking about when I just say it was kind of there.
If you have any inclination for it, you'll end up doing it. So,
Yeah.
oh, I'm a player that knows how to sort of mix sound. Well, you sort of know how to mix sound. Well, now you mix sound.
Yeah, and so like, I think that goes for any churches too. Like, hey, you can kind of do that. Come on, let's let's.
And now you're gonna do it professionally.
Yeah, now you're gonna do
Good
it
luck.
professionally. I'm like, oh, would you say that we're professionals? I guess, quote unquote.
I always like to say it. We're professionals, but we're not experts.
That's a very good point. Professionals get paid. Experts just
Are good at it.
are good at it. And
There are a lot of professionals that are experts. I don't claim to be one.
No, absolutely not. But yeah, I mean, I've been in the church ministry for about 4 years now, like actively just serving, working. But yeah, and so that's a little bit about how we got our start in the church ministry. And so just a little bit about what inspired this podcast.
We alluded to it in the beginning clip there. We literally just had conversations in the parking lot. We would
Yeah.
be leaving, and then we would say, oh, yeah, that one thing we're going to do a week from now. And then we'd be out in the parking lot for an hour and a half and be like, we should go home.
Yeah.
After talking about random things, related things, all sorts of things. So here we are in a podcast.
Yeah. Like,
We're going to streamline it a little more than that because just randomly talking about things can get kind of boring. So we're going to keep it to the tech worship world.
yeah, tech worship production, all that. Well, a lot of our conversations that we had, we're going to be probably coming back to just because a lot of them were good conversations that we're like, that we never finished.
Which is one of the reasons we even started the podcast in the first place.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, we were setting up for Christmas. It was like 4 days before Christmas.
Yeah.
It was like 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock.
Oh, it was
and
much later than that, dude.
our boss and Donnie were programming lights, and I was just here because
Why
I was
not?
just here. It's how it works around here, it seems. And we're just sitting there, and I ask a question. Now, some of you will get this and find it really funny.
Yeah.
I go, so I got a serious question for you guys. And our boss, David, goes, oh, no. I'm like, what bending would you have? Like from Avatar: The Last Airbender. And they go, oh, I thought this was going to be a lot worse.
Yeah.
And then we're just like, this would make a great podcast.
Yeah,
Just a late night podcast of us. And of course, it's what? Like 11 o'clock right now?
10:30, 11.
So it's just how it works. But that's generally where this came from, is those couple of things. And we're just like, we'll make a podcast out of it.
Yeah, and like it'd be fun because a lot of times, like those are sometimes when the best conversations come out. When you're tired, when there's just no train of thought. It's just like, yeah, like that's it. It's just yeah.
Yeah.
For me, that's when I either get the best or the worst thoughts. Like when I'm just tired.
Kind of like the name for this podcast. But I think it's still good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Should we talk about how we got the name of the podcast?
I think we probably should.
Okay, so earlier today, actually, when the day before we're filming, no, the day that we're filming this.
Uh-huh.
Man, I'm just that tired. But the day that we're filming this, we're sitting in this area and
This area
right here, and we're talking about things that we can introduce today and
For this.
yeah. But we're talking about things that we can introduce, and I'm like, wait a minute, what are we gonna name the podcast? And so we're sitting here.
Just as a note, if you were here prior to our podcast series, the channel was named something else and we didn't have a podcast. But we're changing that for the podcast, which is why it's all shifting. But if you knew that, we're like, we can't just keep it as Worship Leaders Are People Too, which was the original name of the channel and is continuing to be the series of the vlogs. But the channel was named that. So we're just like, we need something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm sitting in a reclining office chair, just chilling. And
Right there.
Yeah, like literally right there. And he goes, like out of nowhere too, he goes, I got it. It's kind of bad,
But I got it.
Off stage. And I go,
Huh?
what?
Like, like the microphone stand company. But like off the stage.
And I'm sitting there just trying to process it in my mind. I'm like, off stage. And I had to let it sit for like 5 minutes, and I go, dude,
That's kind of good.
that's a great name, off stage. And like we bounced back between on stage, off stage, so Osos, the Osos podcast, and then it just finally came back to the off stage podcast. And I think that it.
Oh, never mind.
Okay.
Sorry, 2 takes of audio. I was looking at the time going, we've been doing this for half an hour. Yeah, with about a half an hour of sitting around.
Oh yeah, and so like I was like, yeah, because we're off the stage, and that's something that we like to shed a light on is worship leaders on and off the stage, because worship leaders isn't just people on the stage, and so that's a lot about probably what we're going to talk about too in future episodes. But off stage, where we're talking about specifics in the worship production category, but just
that you don't get to see on a regular weekend. And there's a piece of it that I would like to bring in that I've been really noticing more, and people like Bethel and stuff like that have been leading me onto this, and I think it's important to talk about. It's that tech people, which we've got worship people, right?
Yeah.
And they are worshiping.
Yeah.
But tech people are worshiping in their own way, and I think it's really important that people can realize that. And if you can get into that mentality of worshiping while you're running a tech thing, it's just going to change the way you do it and change how everybody else sees it.
Yeah, it's all about.
And if it can be your church culture, even better.
Yeah.
Because then when you do screw up, it's not, oh, you screwed up. It's, oh, you were worshiping. And everyone screws up. Except God.
And then I mean, there's also a fine line. Like if you just say, oh, yeah, I was just worshiping.
Well,
you know what I mean?
True. But if you're in that mentality of worship, that's different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important in churches too to just realize that everybody who is serving on a team in a church essentially is a worship leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we're leading people into their act of worship, which is important. For some people, it's prayer. For some people, it's tech. For some people, it's song. And that's so important. But, yeah, I mean.
But on that topic, if you've got anything that's related to that, we have like 6 ideas. So we've got like 6 podcasts worth of things. If you want to give us a few ideas, we would appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we're two pretty open people. And so we'll talk about almost anything. But I think that'll wrap up this episode.
I think we should, or it's going to get long.
Oh, yeah, it'll get long because, you know, you and I once we start talking, we just don't stop. I think we're gonna need to put a clock or something in the back of the room.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you've been going too long.
Because I keep looking at our timeline over there,
Yeah.
and that number just keeps ticking up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in to episode 1 of the Offstage podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope that you guys got to know us a little bit, and we hope that you guys will tune in to next week's episode. Peace. Dang it.
Perfect.